Well, today marks 1 year to go until the World Cup starts in the US, Canada, and Mexico. Not only is the US hosting this 32-team Club World Cup tournament, they're also hosting the CONCACAF Gold Cup, a 16-team international tournament. How good a test will this combination be over the next 12 months? Lizzy Becherano joins us. Welcome, Lizzy. As spokeswoman for the whole of the United States, can you tell us, is the country ready for the next year?
I don't think so, unfortunately. It'll be very interesting to tell in various cities how they approach the influx of fans, the managing of logistics, the travel. Unlike we've seen with previous FIFA tournaments, public transportation in major US cities is a huge problem. I am based out of Miami, so I can speak mostly about Hard Rock in Miami Gardens, not Miami Gardens. And there are no trains. I believe FIFA is going to be doing some sort of bus system, but that's still to be determined. And the access, for example, the main road into Hard Rock is I-95. There's still massive construction on it. The other day, coming back from an Inter Miami game, I-95 was shut down entirely. So it'll be interesting to know that in about 1 week, when the tournament kicks off at Hard Rock, how that's going to be dealt with. Obviously, there are changes to be made ahead of the actual World Cup coming in 2026, but it seems like slow progress across the United States. And so it'll be very interesting to tell how quickly each city manages to complete each project, because as of right now, there's a lot of concern.
You mentioned then the influx of fans. Are we actually expecting a lot of fans to travel to this Club World Cup? I mean, obviously the World Cup in 12 months' time, that will be a different scale. But from what you're hearing, do you think there will be a lot of fans coming from outside the US to go to these games? Because from our perspective in Europe, it's not really caught fire. So I'd be surprised if there's going to be a lot of fans, maybe a lot of South Americans maybe. But is it really going to be a situation where there's going to be lots of fans arriving for this tournament?
Not to the scale of the World Cup, of course. I think there are some teams in the Club World Cup that draw fans. I would signal mostly the Brazilian teams and Boca and River, whose fans are so loyal that no matter the tournament, they're willing to travel. So I think Miami can expect an influx of Argentinian fans. Orlando and Atlanta can expect an influx of Brazilian fans. But as of right now, it hasn't been as exciting, I would say, like in the States. There's a lot of concern that these teams are treating this tournament as a preseason friendly or series of friendlies. So without rosters announced, without really knowing whether the stars will be making it out to the United States, fans are concerned and not willing to pay the $250 per game as of right now. That being said, if Real Madrid announces their roster and every star comes out to play, Chelsea, every star, Bayern Munich, etc., then I believe there will be more traction, but it will be North America centric, I would say. I don't expect a lot of European fans to travel, but you guys can attest to that better than I can.
Normally in the build up to a tournament, particularly a week out or a few days out from the first game, there's normally sort of blanket media coverage domestically and pushing ticket sales, marketing, merchandising, advertising. What is it like in the US at the moment? Are there a lot of, do you feel there's a tournament kicking off in a few days?
Yes and no. There are billboards everywhere, but I will say it's a little difficult for teams to promote the Club World Cup given that seasons have just ended on behalf of the European teams and Liga MX teams, whereas MLS, as of last Saturday and last Wednesday, there were still league games going on. And so, for example, when we would ask Inter Miami head coach Javier Mascherano, what are you looking forward to at the Club World Cup? He would stop us immediately and say, hey, listen, we're first focused on the Wednesday game against Montreal or the Saturday game against the Columbus Crew. He wouldn't even consider that. So it's just now 2 weeks out or 10 days out that Inter Miami can now begin speaking about it to the media, to fans, or the team will put out communications and tweets saying, hey, now we're locked in for this new campaign and new tournament. I think given the awkward timing of it all and the saturated calendar, it's been difficult for fans to understand now is the start of a new summer international tournament.
Is it also an issue of the fact it's the NBA finals this week? So, I mean, that is a massive deal in the US, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, the competition for attention, I think, has always been there for soccer in the United States. But right now, I think more than ever.
Lizzy, obviously FIFA have bent over backwards to make sure that Lionel Messi is there and Inter Miami. You've got Seattle Sounders as well and LAFC who've kind of taken advantage of a bit of a backdoor route into the tournament. How do you think the MLS teams are going to get on in this tournament? Is there a chance that any one of these is going to get to the latter rounds, or is it about sort of getting out of the groups as best you can?
I think the expectation first and foremost is to get out of the group. I think each team knows it'll be a difficult challenge. Again, I speak to Inter Miami and Mascherano and what he said because that tends to be my day-to-day, but even he, with the roster that they have, with Messi, with Suarez, Busquets, potentially Jordi Alba, depending on his injury, even he is tempering expectations by saying our goal is to make it out of the group, but don't underestimate Al-Ahly, don't underestimate Palmeiras. Like, I think for everyone in CONCACAF, including Liga MX teams, the challenge will be to make it out of the group stage. And it's interesting, but even Jorge Mas, co-owner of Inter Miami, who is, I want to say, one of the biggest dreamers in all of Major League Soccer, who said from day one that he would sign Lionel Messi, is saying that the dream is to get out of the group. And I think that says more about the expectations than what fans can assume or what we as media can assume.
I want to ask you about the pitches because when I've travelled with Premier League teams to the US for pre-season, I know it's a different sort of situation there because obviously the pitches aren't sort of necessarily curated as they're going to be for this tournament. But there is always a bit of criticism privately, certainly, about the state of the pitches in America. The Copa America pitches weren't great either. What can you tell us about the surfaces that the teams are going to play on and what they're doing to try and improve them?
FIFA's adopting a completely separate system from what CONMEBOL did at Copa America. So last summer, we saw the stitching aspect and fields being placed together just days before kickoff, and the seams were seen. Aesthetically, obviously, was a mess, but many players complained that between the seams, they could get injured and that it was very uneven and bouncy, and that caused for several concerns. This year, however, FIFA's adopting a new style. One, for example, they're applying a field for the entirety of the tournament. So CONMEBOL in most stadiums, particularly NFL stadiums that used artificial turf, they would switch out the field. Even during the tournament, obviously we saw there was a switch ahead of the semifinals, a switch ahead of the final. FIFA is going to be using one strand of grass for the entire tournament. They're calling it a shallow pitch, which is strips of artificial and natural grass kind of welded together and then hydraulically placed together on the field. So it's a different system entirely. They're also creating drainage systems so that stadiums like Mercedes-Benz at Atlanta, who receives little to no light, has a drainage system, has sunlight, and can be kept relatively well throughout the 3 or 4 weeks that lasts for the entire tournament. So the treatment will be very different. That's not to say better at the moment. I think players and coaches will be able to attest to that once the tournament is over. But FIFA was well aware of the concerns and the complaints said by players last summer, and so are tackling new challenges this summer.
Just go back to the Inter Miami thing a little bit. I might be a little bit brutal here, and I'm sorry if this offends MLS. But
There's a shock.
Lionel Messi, Luis Suarez, Sergio Busquets, Jordi Alba, they left Europe years ago now because they couldn't hack it anymore. They were basically, I mean, Leo Messi at PSG for the final 6 months was being booed by the PSG fans. He was gone. Could this be really embarrassing for Inter Miami and MLS in the sense that they could get quite heavily beaten by the teams they're playing? Obviously, I'm looking at their group. It's not the strongest group on paper, although Palmeiras are going to be a strong competitor. Porto, not the strongest European team. Al-Ahly from Egypt. But still, I just think that the level that US fans are seeing right now when Messi plays and he puts her in the top corner from a free kick and he looks fantastic, but this is going to be a different level altogether, isn't it?
Yeah. It's It's a difficult one. I think Inter Miami and Major League Soccer teams are built differently than most European teams in most European leagues because of the roster rules. So the salary cap and the designated player system makes for a very interesting setup. I think you have Lionel Messi, who is still able to produce great goals, Suarez, who's been assisting Messi, Sergio Busquets, who's doing great in the midfield. But then you have this lack of investment in the defense and the wingers because that's what Inter Miami are able to spend under the Major League Soccer roster rules. I think should Inter Miami struggle in this tournament, it will be because of defensive issues, as we've seen in Major League Soccer. I mean, I believe they got scored around 25 to 28 goals in a 7-game run. And that was due to their defensive issues. The team has no problem attacking and dominating offensively. Obviously, with the likes of Suarez and Messi, that would be the case. But it's this, what we call this like lopsided effect that the Major League Soccer rules really force these teams to suffer and not hold strong. I mean, GMs and sporting directors have to choose between a strong attack or a strong defense when spending. So I think that's where you see the consequences of those roster rules.
Are we expecting Inter Miami to be the best placed MLS side to do well in this tournament compared to, say, Seattle and LAFC? Out of the three of those, is it Inter Miami that are they expected to do the best out of those three teams?
Expected, yes. I think any team Lionel Messi plays in is expected to be the best because of his standard. I wouldn't underestimate LAFC's quality, though.
Thanks, Lizzy. Thanks so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you out there. Time for a break now. When we come back, we'll head to South America, who are looking to take the tournament very seriously indeed.